Are you feeling depressed? Run down? Like you just can't win? Are you the President of the United States? Then you may be suffering from presidential depression. Ask your doctor for Paxil. Second-term strength. Paxil second-term strength treats a whole range of symptoms, like Benghazi, the NSA scandal, the IRS scandal, the AP scandal, the Petraeus scandal, that time Jay-Z and Beyonce went to Cuba, and of course, Obamacare website problems.
You gotta love Saturday Night Live. The Laughing Roundtabl joins us now. PBS NewsHour co-anchor Gwen Ifill, Congressman Adam Kinzinger, Republican of Illinois, the Wall Street Journal's Pulitzer Prize-winning columnist Bret Stephens, and former Vermont Governor Howard Dean. Welcome to all of you. And Gwen, I am going to start with you, the reporter at the table. You have been a reporter in this city for more years than you probably want to talk about, but covered a number of presidents. As far as weeks go, this seems a pretty bad one for President Obama.
It was thank you for a laugh to start it off, because we haven't been laughing much in Washington this week.
We got to laugh sometime.
And they're not laughing a lot at the White House this week. It's been, to have the president come out as he did and speak basically for an hour saying, yeah, I was wrong, yeah, I fumbled, repeatedly, was not only a bad concession for him, but it was also so un-Obama-like. Their certainty, our defense in all of this has been, we know what's best for you, and they had to come out and say, but we don't know how to do it, and that this is complicated, something which you would like to think they knew. So it was a bad week. They're hoping, as you heard John Carl say, they've hit bottom, and that there's only one place to go, up, but no one's quite clear what the path is to up.
Okay, Howard Dean, I want to turn to you and first of all say happy 65th birthday.
Oh, please. Ouch. I don't know if that's
You do not have to worry about healthcare.gov. You qualify for Medicare. Sorry to point that out.
But you know how long it took me to sign up for Medicare on the web? 10 minutes.
Okay, there you go.
Only we had a public option.
They've got that one down. Look, we saw this week red state Democrats running for cover, speaking out against the president.
There's two sort of aspects of this, and we can either focus on this one, which is the usual Washington panic, craziness, isolated from everything else that's going on in the country, or the real problem, which is they got to fix the website. And they got to fix the website. And I'm not convinced it's going to be fixed. I've seen a lot of tech rollouts. We don't do those well in this country. My rule for them is, and no matter what, the electronic medical records of the tax department takes twice as long, costs twice as much, and often you have to do it twice. They got to start getting people enrolled. I think they can, but they may have to do it manually.
Bret Stephens, what does this do for going forward for President Obama the rest of his term and trying to get anything else through?
Well, if Democrats keep thinking like that, it's going to be the greatest political gift for Republicans in maybe decades. Obamacare is a political self-punching machine for the president. You have a November 30th deadline. Does anyone seriously think that's going to be met in terms of fixing the website? I doubt it. There's a March 15th deadline for the end of enrollment period where 2/3 of Americans who are trying to sign up are going to discover that they don't qualify for subsidies. And then in June, we get what will presumably will be the beginning of the employer mandate, where suddenly millions of Americans are going to discover they're being shunted into part-time work or work under 30 hours precisely because of Obamacare. So this is a kind of gift that will keep on giving for Republicans at least through the next election cycle, if not the one after that.
Congressman Kinzinger.
I'm glad the governor called for a public option, because to me this shows exactly what in my mind the Democrats' plans were from the very beginning, which is a public option, ultimately going to a single payer system. This thing is failing, but this is failing much faster than they expected. The website's the website. That's going to get fixed. The bigger issue is this. I was in Morris, Illinois, talking to a friend of mine who said, hey, yeah, I just got notice. My monthly cost is going to be the same, but my deductible is going from $2,500 to $6,000. And he said, I'm going to use my deductible, which means it's basically a $3,500 tax increase on my friend in Morris. This is happening all over the country, and it's a systemic issue that goes beyond a website and beyond getting a website fixed.
And I want to stay with you for a minute here. The tables have turned pretty quickly. Less than a week ago, everyone was talking about the divide between in the Republican Party. How does that affect you personally, and what do you think of that now? Has this helped?
I think this is, just from a Raleigh political perspective, because I'm not celebrating this because this hurts real Americans, but from a political perspective, we came out of a government shutdown where I think undoubtedly Republicans took the brunt of the hit. And we had an amazingly quick change of fortunes. But that's just from politics. We're not out there celebrating this and saying, yay, yippee, because like my buddy whose costs are going up, this is happening to millions of Americans. But yeah, in terms of the Republicans, we're very united on this, which is, we've been saying from the beginning, this plan doesn't work, and it's beyond the website. When the website gets fixed, I think Americans are going to be shocked to see that there's still a problem.
Gwen, the Tea Party, the Republicans, and now the divided Democrats.
It was only a month ago that we said that the Republicans were hopelessly divided and the Democrats were hopefully united, and that was what was driving what the world in the wake of the government shutdown. A month later, we now have the divided Democrats. What we see around this table is an example of why life is so hard right now at 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. Democrats, the president doesn't want single payer. Everybody knows that.
He made a mistake.
He said, well, maybe you believe
you're
he
in
did.
a single payer. If you weren't in Congress, you'd be in a single payer. It's a very successful one. It's called the Veterans Administration.
But let me just finish.
And I'm in a single payer as of today because I just got.
Like I said, I'm glad you're saying it because this is
payer.
putting on the record
Medicare is a single
what the goal of the Democrat Party is in the long run.
Yeah, we want health care for everybody.
Okay, here's the problem.
Okay.
Here's the problem. The White House has a Goldilocks defense. We were trying not to go too liberal. We were trying not to go too conservative. We thought we had it just right. It turns out not to be right. The president essentially said that when he was in the briefing room the other day. He can't make anybody happy right now, and that's
which brings you back to the issue of trust, and that really is, I think, his hardest problem at this point.
There's also an issue of competence, Martha. I mean, we've had a year of fumbles by the administration. Over Syria with the IRS issues, the question of the NSA, what happened to Ed Snowden, wiretapping the Chancellor of Germany. I think there is an issue of trust, but there's a sense that this is a president who's fundamentally disconnected from the government he's ostensibly running, and until he manages to establish a sense that he is in charge, knows what he's doing, and isn't consistently over-promising and under-delivering, his political problem will continue to grow.
I want you to look at 2014 then. Mm-hmm. What happens there? Is this gone? Has everybody forgotten this?
No. I mean, I think that what Gwen opened up with was right. If you get this, or David Plouffe opened up, if you get this fixed by March and people are enrolled, they're going to like it. I think the greatest fear of the Republican Party is that this works, and I think it will work. And it did work when Mitt Romney did it in Massachusetts. 98.5% of all their people have health insurance.
But they're not going to forget it completely, it doesn't seem.
Well, any more than they forget the government shutdown.
Exactly.
People do forget.
You'll be reminded on that, too.
How do you justify my constituents who are calling me, a lady, Betsy in Rockton, Illinois, says her policy is being canceled, costs are skyrocketing. So we can get the website fixed all we want. How are you going to fix the fact that these people were promised more affordable insurance for everybody?
And that goes back to
my guess is Betsy gets a tax subsidy and her actual premium is lower.
I want to turn quickly to Iran. This week may be a very big week with negotiations with Iran, with Secretary Kerry. The White House seems cautiously optimistic about this. The State Department seems cautiously optimistic that they can get a deal with Iran. We've heard cautious optimism before, nothing happened. Is it going to happen, Bret, you think?
Well, it's very hard to say. Everyone thought that the last deal was going to happen, and it failed on French objections. Who would have thought? But the French are actually quite serious about it.
Even though Secretary Kerry said they all agreed. I'm not sure that's the case.
No, I think it is the case that the French particularly objected to a deal that would have allowed Iran to continue to build a plutonium reactor, which is a second route for them to a bomb. I don't know if I think it's impossible and foolish to forecast whether a deal will be made or not.
Should a deal be made?
No, a deal should only be made if Iran begins to dismantle, not simply suspend or slow, but to actively dismantle their nuclear programs. Because what we're basically saying to them is, you're at mile 23 of your marathon, you've been sprinting towards a nuclear bomb. Now, how about jog for a few months, and then let's see where we are 6 months from now.
If a comprehensive plan, and they've said this takes about 6 months, why not halt what you can while you're trying to do that
because you have more leverage.
Plan?
Right now, we are at a moment in which we have high leverage because the sanctions are in place and because the freeze on their foreign capital reserves really hurts them. So we're going to be saying to them, we're going to be relieving ourselves of our leverage piece by piece. Look, the Iranians are expert negotiators. We should not imagine for 1 second that the State Department is going to beat Iran in a nuclear negotiation.
But here's
in
the
the
problem.
meantime, yes.
But here's the problem.
Right.
Here's a larger problem for the president. It's the same problem that he had with health care, which is the people who are abandoning him on this, who are being most harshly critical, are not just Republicans. They're Democrats who are getting phone calls from Benjamin Netanyahu saying this is not acceptable. So he has the
And they're going to get a lot more of those
and
this
he's
week.
Get a lot more this week. So you have the credibility problems. You have it's leverage, but it's also the fact that people sitting around that table in Geneva, they are also watching what we're doing here in this country, and they are also looking at the president and trying to test whether he is weak enough for them to get what they need.
Yeah, but
More sanctions? Will we see more sanctions?
I think we need to. We're at a point of epic leverage. The reason the Iranians even want to talk right now is because they're hurting. But then they come and say, hey, we're hurting, we want to talk, but we want basically a $20 billion cash infusion into our economy. I think we should talk with the Iranians at the point they come. If we got to the table and they said, well, we want you to relieve some of the sanctions, we should have said, well, you're obviously not feeling the hurt enough. You're not ready to talk. Come back when you're desperate for it.
Just quickly, Governor, isn't this all about wanting to negotiate with the Iranians in the end?
Let me just point out also, since somebody's accused the president of incompetence, it was the president's sanctions that finally worked and brought the Iranians. It wasn't previous presidents, it was this president's sanctions who finally slowed this program down. I'm a hardliner on Iran. I don't trust the mullahs as far as I can throw them. I happen to be involved with trying to get 3,000 unarmed people who we promised we would defend out of Iran. Out of Iraq, who are Iranian dissidents. I don't trust the Iranians at all. So my view is, if we could get a deal, that would be great. It has to be verifiable, and I also believe it ought to include dismantling of some of their facilities.
Okay, thank you all for joining us.